Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Deborah Laurs, toko ingoa. Okay. My name is Deborah. I'm the Assistant Manager at Te Tiriti Student Learning, Victoria University of Wellington. We took these photos during a practice session. Scarily, we all look rather similar, which is pleasing. This was not planned. Right. Never mind. I'm Deborah. I'm in Wellington. Ruth, over to you.
Kia ora everybody. So as Deb was saying, we've worked together, and I just happened to be in the middle in this particular photo coming up from Zoom. So I'm based at Makoia campus in Rotorua of Toi Ohomai Te Pukenga, and I've had a great lot of fun working with Mona and Deb to prepare our resources for today. Mona.
Thank you, Ruth. Kia ora, everyone. I am Mona, and I'm an academic learning advisor based at Manukau Institute of Technology, Te Pukenga in Auckland. And yeah, I've been a learning advisor for a little over 7 years now.
Excellent. And we would also like to thank Katie Manben from Unitec, who was part of the initial planning for this presentation. Yeah. Okay. So this is just an overview of what the session will involve today. Meet your presenters. You've done that already. We'd certainly like to get to know you as the session goes on as well. So we're going to cover the rationale for this session, which, as I say, is following on from conversations that were started in 2021. And so Ruth will share the feedback from the ATLAANZ Regional Hui and members there. Then, taking things forward, Mona is going to share a couple of examples of existing professional recognition schemes to see what lessons we can perhaps borrow from them. I guess with the intention of shaping such a scheme very much to suit Aotearoa. And then we're going to have a break for a bit and then come back and work in mirror boards and breakout rooms just to get your ideas. And then we will come back and hopefully pull all things together and keep the conversation moving. Right.
So as Deb was saying, the meeting and greeting, we would love to have more interaction, and so we definitely have that coming up for you.
All right, so the big question is, and I don't know whether you have experienced this, but very often it's actually quite hard to explain who we are and what we do. I Googled tertiary learning advisor and it says help students develop effective academic skills. But as we know, there's a whole lot that goes on in amongst the help. There's a whole lot that goes on in terms of the students, and there's a whole lot in terms of effective and academic skills. And the other thing is, what does this look like in practice? Now, ATLAANZ is now in its 20th year. So I think it's really timely that we have grown up and we start to just have a bit of a think of who we are as a profession, I guess, but also to try in some way capture what it is we do, because I'm not sure about you, but a lot of us have come from different backgrounds into this role. The other thing, sometimes if we find it hard to explain what we do, there's been quite a lot of research that shows that other people don't necessarily know what we do either. So this comes from a piece from Elsa Percy and Jeanette Sterling in Australia, and it's a while ago, but they noted that we often don't quite know what the bodies of knowledge are that we are drawing on ourselves. We maybe haven't made them overt. This is a wonderful quote that some of you may know. It's from Kate Channick, who is a leading figure in the learning profession field. And her comment was that learning centres seem to be regarded as a crash repair shop. Possibly not by us, but maybe by others. Some more research from Hank Heisner, Linda Kimmins, and Lindy Gallagher, saying that quite often learning advisors are institutionally positioned on the margins, and some or other of you may have experience of that as well. And this one from from two of my colleagues actually, again reiterating the notion that the role of TLA's tertiary learning advisors is not particularly well understood. Would you agree? Yes? Good, we're in the right place. We need to try and address these things. And this is a conversation that has been going for a while. And what I've done on this reference list is actually highlighted the research and the articles written by ATLAANZ members. So Susan Carter and Julie Trafford in Auckland, Susan Carter and myself, a sort of pan-university group, primarily I think from Otago University put this one together, the metaphors one. Martin McMorrow, some of you may know, did his PhD on learning advising. The lovely Mona is here as well, talking about core competencies, and she's got a session on that tomorrow as well for you. Susan Manning picked up the notion of metaphors and trying to clarify what it is we do. And my colleagues, Kirsten Reed and Shagam Gar, took the metaphor of what we do in the shadows as well. So, yeah, these are conversations that are going on. And I don't really think I need to convince you, but this is certainly something that we have been alerted to for a while. So this is just me tub thumping, I guess. These are the arguments in favour. Promote our profession, acknowledge our specialised knowledge and practice, because we all bring skills, and I think it would be valuable to somehow bring them together. Build a national networking and expertise directory. This may be a pipe dream, but I know the Australian organisation has got one, and so has the UK sister organisation. So it means that you can go onto the website, and if you want to find somebody who is working in the area of, these people will be available to you. And also, as I said, on our 20th birthday, I think it's time to showcase ATLAANZ as an organisation. So moving in that direction, what have we done? We've consulted with members. We did that last year at the 2021 Hui, and we'll share that with you in a moment. We're consulting with you now. We have started exploring precedents from other areas, and these are things that we will share with you today. And I guess what we would really like from today's session is your input in terms of just establishing the aims and the values and the criteria, and then getting down to practical stuff, possibly suggestions on what the process, if it went ahead, might look like in practice in terms of assessment and evaluation. All right, so I'm now going to pass over to Ruth, and I will stop sharing. We've sort of practiced this, but we're not quite sure how it's going to work. And she is going to pick up from where I have left off. You're on mute, dear. Yes.
Let's try that again, shall we?
Perfect.
We prepared for possible reruns of things, so I hope you're all ready for the odd technical wizardry. So as Deb was saying, from 2021, there were 3 regional hui, and members put together under these different headings, or we've grouped them: values, criteria, what kinds of evidence we would submit if we were applying for a certain status as a learning advisor, yet to be decided, and the evaluation, who would do it, how would it be done, and those other aspects there. So the Miro board that we're going into for the breakout session does have this information on it already. But this is a summary from last year. And as Deb was saying, you know, we pretty much know we want this, and we know some of the benefits from it, such as, you know, colleagues understanding the role. And from my point of view, new learning advisors understanding what the work entails and what the job may be like, titles, promotion, sharing practice, and so on. All good things. So you will have access to these in the Miro board, and then you'll be able to add further to what's there. The values, at the moment, it's a set of single words distilled out of last year's feedback, but can be added to. So we also have, you'll have resources like the professional practice document and so on that will support this process. So those are in the Miro board as well. So we can think about our work and what's important to us in doing our work. Criteria, so different ways of judging our work. Quite a focus came through last year on diversity, being culturally responsive, treaty, conscious, equity, achieving equity for different groups, and being collaborative, evidence-based, and so on. So again, you'll see all that in the Miro board, and you'll be able to add as you see fit. Evidence, types of evidence that people suggested. Everything from, you know, student and peer feedback, staff feedback, self-reflection, data for groups, like what Tanya was talking about this morning, you know, or I heard another colleague talking about, you know, the performance in particular courses, peer, our own colleagues, peer review, and so on. So those are all there, and you can certainly add more to that. How would we evaluate and who would do it? So we've got some examples, such as people submitting for teaching awards or other types of portfolios. Should there be some sort of period around it, you know, that actually that 3 to 5 years, we've actually taken that out. So definitely you'll have opinions on how this could be done. So that'll be in the board. And Deb's just going to speak to this slide about what she's done.
One moment.
So that Deb followed.
Thank you, Ruth. Okay, so out of the hui, as well as the feedback from members, and as I say, you'll have a chance to look at that in general, there were some questions. People said things like, is it worth it? Is it recognised by institutions and stuff like that? So what I did on your behalf was talk back to our fellow members of ICALD, which is the International Consortium of Academic Language and Learning Advisors, of whom Dina's organisation in Canada is part, and we've also got sister organisations in Australia and South Africa, and this is our UK sister organisation, and they've got a scheme that Mona is going to share with you in a moment, along with another one. And so I took those questions back to them, and I asked things like that. So yes, they think it's worth the time and effort. It's not formally recognised. They suggest, as Ruth said, that it possibly could form part of a role description or an interview process. The other question people raised was, how does it fit with other schemes, such as those offered by the Higher Education Academy in the United Kingdom? And this is the comment from the learning developers in higher education. They said it's our scheme. Okay, it aligns with our values. So there are other schemes, but they've taken ownership of it. Uptake, you can see in the UK, is low-ish. Since it's been instituted, they've apparently awarded 111 qualifications, which is quite nice. And that, as I say, builds their expertise directory. They don't have any particular time frame for qualifying. Least time, as always, is that putting at the discretion of institutions. But one of the things that they do require of successful applicants is that they share the love by taking part in the review process later on. So those are just issues that people raised, and I thought, well, I might as well, see we've got the answers to them, just give them to you now. Thank you.
Mona's going to take over now.
Sorry, just give me 1 second. Right. So, right. Thank you, Deb. And in this part of the presentation, I'm going to share with you some information about two existing professional recognition schemes, as Deb mentioned, from two different organizations in the UK. Hopefully you can see my screen okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So one of those organizations is ALDinHE, that Deb just mentioned, Association for Learning Development in Higher Education, and the other one is UKAT, UK Advising and Tutoring Association. Right. And I will be comparing these schemes on various grounds, like who are the professional groups that these schemes are intended for, what are the different levels of recognition, what are the criteria or the basis of assessment of application, and so on. So talking about the first ground, who are these schemes for? In the case of ALDinHE, the scheme is for learning developers, and learning developers seem to do something what we do in New Zealand, that they help students in developing their academic skills in terms of language, maths, digital literacy, etc., in tertiary education. So that role appears to be similar to ours here. In case of UKAT, the scheme is for acknowledging academic advisors and personal tutors. So they do provide academic skill development support, but besides that, they also help with pastoral issues, with career advice, with personal development plans. So the role is a little different from ours in the case of UKAT. And in both the cases, they are known by different titles. I will give you a few seconds to go through the content on the slide and then move on. Okay, so in the case of eligibility, who can apply for recognition, both have similar criteria. The applicant needs to be either based at an institution which is a member of that association, or they need to be based at an institution which is a member of the association, or they need to have a personal individual membership. In the case of UKAT, I have also found that if you are not a member, you can still apply, but you won't be able to access certain benefits of discount and resources. Okay. Then coming to the next ground of comparison, what is the purpose of each of these schemes? That is quite similar. They both tend to acknowledge or value the contribution that the target professional groups make to student success and achievement. And they also try to promote best practice in the field in their own ways. In the case of UKAT, something interesting to notice is that they also try to provide a measurable way by which the evidence of the difference that academic support provides, or the support provided by academic advisors and personal tutors, the difference that it makes can be measured or computed. And it is mapped out in terms of certain well-defined competencies and skills. So that's an interesting point to notice, I think. Talking about the different levels of recognition, in the case of ALDinHE, there are 2 levels, as you can see, certified practitioner and certified leading practitioner. And in the case of UKAT, there are 3 levels offered: recognized practitioner in advising, recognized senior leader, and recognized leader in advising. So for the Certified Practitioner Award, the professional demonstrates excellence in supporting academic skill development in students. And to be a certified leading practitioner, they need to demonstrate specialist knowledge in the field. And also they need to make a significant contribution to sharing best practice with the wider learning development community. In the case of UKAT, I found that level 1 and level 3 are quite similar to the 2 levels in ALDinHE. It's the middle level which looks like a distinctive part about the scheme. And this is for professionals who have some experience in mentoring other academic advisors and tutors who may be relatively new to advising. So it's for professionals who have departmental and institutional responsibilities for leading and developing others. And at this point, I would like to encourage you to start thinking about, how many levels can we have, or what do we prefer? What do we prefer to call them in the case of ATLAANZ scheme? Because as Deb mentioned, in the second part of the session, there'll be a chance for you to contribute your thoughts and ideas through the mirror board that Ruth has set up. Okay, coming to the next ground of comparison, how is evidence assessed? In the case of ALDinHE, the evidence is evaluated against 5 comprehensive values. Working alongside students, being collaborative, sharing best practice, being committed to research and scholarship, and undertaking self-reflection and professional development. In the case of UKAT, I found that the values appear to be quite similar. Besides these 5, they also have 3 more, and the ones that are different appear to be empathetic, authentic, and being evidence-informed. So their recognition scheme is underpinned by these core values. And we know that we have our own values mentioned in the ATLAANZ Professional Practice Document. So it will be useful to think what would we want to include as a set of criteria for our scheme. In the case of UKAT, in conjunction with the values, there is also a professional framework for advising and tutoring, which is a very comprehensive framework made up of 23 competencies that are broadly categorized into 4 component areas. Each of the component areas has a different focus, and they are conceptual, informational, relational, and professional. If you're interested in knowing more about the component areas and the competencies, there will be a link to a resource to this framework in the mirror board. In terms of application requirements, there are extensively detailed requirements under each level in both the schemes, but predominantly the mode of assessment is reflective narrative, which needs to have examples that demonstrate values and competencies. And those examples need to be backed by evidence. And evidence could be a teaching resource that they have created, or a recording of a session, and so on. And of course, there need to be referees or testimonials. Yeah, I will pause talking for a few seconds to let you take in the contents on the slide. There are different requirements with different word limits for each level. Yeah. So I would also like to draw your attention to the question at the bottom here. Please start thinking in terms of what different types of valid evidence would we accept or could we include in the application requirements in our scheme, and who would evaluate this evidence? How would the review panel of assessors be constituted? Okay, moving on to the application process. In case of ALDinHE, the applications are accepted throughout the year, whereas in the case of UKAT, the assessment phases run 4 times a year. The ALDinHE scheme the applications need to be submitted on certain templates or forms that are available on their website. And the feedback is sent within 12 weeks of submission. In the case of UKAT, the applicant needs to register on an e-portfolio system called PebblePad, and the feedback is sent within 8 to 9 weeks of submission. And in both the cases, the application goes through 3 stages. In the case of ALDinHE, a couple of reviewers look into the application, and then they forward their decision to the professional recognition panel, who has the final word on the application. And if there is an appeal against the decision, then it goes to the steering group. And in the case of UKAT, first it's assessed, the application is assessed by internal assessors and then moderated by an external moderator. And then the final word is of the assessment panel. And again, something for us to ponder is what could be the stages of review in our scheme and the realistic turnaround time. Still in the process, hopefully, okay, sorry, I got distracted. What kind of help and support are available? In the case of ALDinHE, the applicants get a handbook which contains examples of previous applications that were successful. And in the case of UKAT, they have a system of offering local mentoring support if the institution is a member of UKAT. If their institution is not a member of UKAT, then the applicant has the option of booking a one-to-one session with a mentor. And they can also access support materials through the e-portfolio system after they have registered their application. In the case of ALDinHE, the support is offered in the form of writing retreats, the regional symposia and webinars, and the sessions during annual conference. And again, something for us to think about is what kind of mentoring and study resources could we arrange realistically for the applicants in our scheme. Talking about the outcomes, in the case of ALDinHE, there are 3 outcomes. Either the application is accepted and the recognition level is awarded as applied. There may be minor amendments needed, which need to be made, and then it is accepted, or the applicant needs to resubmit the application after revision. And in case of UKAT, there are two outcomes. Either the application is accepted or it is referred back for revision. And if they resubmit the revised application within 2 months of receiving the outcome, then there are no additional costs. Talking about costs, in case of ALDinHE, there are no apparent charges for the review, although there may be some charges for the mentoring or the support that applicants access. In the case of UKAT, the individual personal application costs £250 for non-UKAT members and £115 if they are a member of the institution, the association, sorry. Yeah, and something for us to consider, do we want our review process to be free, which appears to be quite likely. So this is something to consider. Yeah, and in the case of UKAT, there are some discount packages available if the institution is a member of UKAT. And the final ground is, what benefits do the applicants and the profession gain? Well, they are quite similar in both cases. The professionals are recognized for their good work, and the profession is promoted as a, in its own right, and the professional identity is strengthened. The successful professionals can put those post-nominal letters at the end of their names in their emails and other communication. So that's pretty much about the two schemes, and these are the resources for further reading, and some of these links are included in the mirror board.
Okay, I'll just step in again quickly. These are absolutely just two of the programs that we identified as being similar in content. Katie, if she'd been available to take part from Unitec, was going to share a badging scheme that they have at their institution. So you may also have other ideas of other ways of doing it. But I guess our question about now is, if these are two schemes that are already in operation, what's the same about our role, what's different? And I think that's really what we would like to focus on today, is if we're going to do this, creating something that recognises the distinctive nature of learning advising in Aotearoa. Mona, over to you for the main question. Thank you.
Yeah, so these are some of the suggestions on the different aspects that we would encourage you to think about and give your thoughts and suggestions and views. The criteria, there is already feedback from the previous WHOI, but we would encourage you to extend that conversation and to add to the information available on the mirror board from the previous WHOI about criteria, and then about the evidence and how would it be evaluated, who would evaluate, how would the review panel be constituted, and the application process, what could be the realistic stages, and the time. What are the different levels, of course, what are the different levels of recognition and what titles? Because for Aotearoa, we would want titles to reflect our distinctive tertiary environment and the cultural element of the country. That's all from me. Ruth, over to you. I'll stop sharing.
Sorry, just turning my mic on this time and just sharing. Whoops. I had two instances of the PowerPoint open. I was all set. My goodness. Okay, from current slide, here we go. So we've got a break coming up, and it's an opportunity just to meet and greet and have a chat. And since we're all in one room, we'll actually be able to speak to one another. as well using voice. But in the Miro board, we're going to use some of the tools and ask you to share your names and role titles there. And after 10 minutes, we'll bring you back to the PowerPoint or to the main room, which we will all still be in. And then we'll introduce the breakout session. So during that time, we will look at all the resources that Mona and Deb have spoken about and use the functions in Miro, notes, chat and comment. And then we're going to run a voting process at the end as to what are our preferences. And there's also a space to do role titles and levels where you can put in all your suggestions. So have any of you used Miro before, please? Okay. I know I've seen it used for collaboration for, teaching team or ACL frameworks across Te Pūkenga. So, but we will find out more about each other in the meet and greet activity shortly. There's a few things about the way it works that we can have a look at when the board opens. So I'm going to put a link in the chat. As a new user, you'll just need to use your email to create an identity and select a password. And then after that, people can recognise you and type your name to get your attention in the chat and that sort of thing. You might get the odd video tutorial popping up as a new user. So just close those and just know that you can go back and have a look later. Miro it's an edgeless whiteboard, so it goes in all directions, and it's a really fantastic way to have ongoing collaboration could be used with, with teammates. It could be used with a student group. It's got a lot of potential. And if anything goes wrong and you can't make yourself an account, well, you'll just be given a name, and we'll be quite interested to see what name you get. So when you join the board, you'll see you'll be doing that on your screen, and I'll just leave the screen share on when the board opens and give a few tips about navigation and the tools in there, but you've also got a wee bit of guidance as well. Once we're in the board, I'm going to start a timer, so I've got it ready here, and in 10 minutes we'll move back to the PowerPoint and introduce the breakout session. So I will just take this link, which will open for me. I want to skip the verification. So you will get something like this. So the board's just loading. And from here, I will copy the link for you. So you'll have something that looks very similar to this. And I'm going to copy the link, put that in our...
Are you sharing your screen, Ruth? Because we can't see the Miro board.
No, but I may have to change screens.
Yeah.
But I'm just putting the link in the chat right at this moment. So I am going to do that. And then I might have to reshare by the looks of it. So the link's gone into the chat, and I will stop sharing and reshare so I can give you the sort of a wee rundown on the navigation. Where are we? Let me see now. Oh, I've got too many things open. I can't see which screen it is. I will try that. I'll just try sharing my screen.
Lots of visiting people are here anyway, which is cool.
Oh, good. So I'm sharing my screen and now I'm going to go to the actual board that we've opened. So can you see that now?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, good. And so if I know you've got your screen, but if you could just look at mine for a moment, you'll see that we've got 2 people who didn't create an account, which is unfortunate. So we don't know who you are, but hopefully we're going to find out shortly. We've got visiting artist and somebody else just flew past as well. Now, this has a left to right orientation for the activity today, just like the breakout room does. And the instructions are here on the left side, just a bit of guidance. Some of the same shortcuts that work in Word also work here in Miro. And then on the left-hand side, you've got your toolbar. There's a comment function there, and you can manually get sticky notes and so on that we'll be using to add to the board later. However, what we're asking you to do right now is to use the sticky notes. There's a pack here, so you can grab a sticky note. It should come off and you can pick a chair, and we just want you to put your name on a chair that you like. Some people have done it already, and also maybe a second sticky note, different colour, and put your role title in as well. So I'm just doing mine now. So that's probably enough from me. So I can stop sharing and we can all have a look at the board itself and just see what each other is doing.
I chose a really uncomfortable chair. Never mind.
Oh, I chose a stool. Goodness. I was going to say as well, if you've got a trackpad or a mouse pad or a touch screen, it's a lot easier to navigate, but you can use your scrolling mouse, and there's also bars to pull along the bottom and along the side. So there's different ways you can shrink the screen or enlarge it. So bottom right, if it's too small, just click the zoom button on the bottom right and just make it a bit bigger so you can see what you're doing. We've got a lot of chairs. We were not sure how many people would be arriving. I forgot to set the timer. Goodness gracious. Okay. So thank you, Cherie, and colleagues who've named themselves. Now, up on the top of your screen above the board, you'll see 2 little down arrows. Catherine calls them chevrons. That's where the chat is. So you can click on there and open the chat, and then there's a lot of old comments in there from when we were experimenting with this board and learning how to use it. Deb, did you notice the time?
No. But
okay.
I reckon as long in terms of numbers of people, how have we got? We've got Ruth, Cherie, Kirsten, we've got me, we've got Shadan, we've got Mona, this visiting designer. If you can pick a chair and put your name in, that would be cool. And people are saying hi in the chat as well.
Oh, good. And we've got visiting architect hovering up. And guess
Yes.
what? There's this feature where if you're running the board, say you're running a group, you can bring everyone to you. And so all of you will suddenly have to come to wherever I am if I'm running the board. Okay.
Sorry, can you tell me how you can make this so that I can see it on my screen? Because it's either like really little or really big, and I can't get a.
I can't see who that is. Who was that?
Sorry, that's me, Kirsten.
Kirsten, if you try control and the scroll button on your mouse.
Kirsten, what kind of device are you using?
Just a PC.
Oh yes. We'll see along the bottom right. Can you see a little a zoom function there?
Yeah.
You've got plus or minus.
Right.
That's quite an easy one because you can keep you know, a bit of control over it. I'm actually doing this session from my personal laptop, which has got a touch screen, simply because it's quite a bit easier to, I've found, to navigate around. I can do it on another device, but it's just that bit more tricky.
So who else we got? Ben, can you pick a chair and put yourself on? That would be nice. And Cherie, if you can put your role title, that would be interesting as well.
It's under the chair, isn't it?
Is it?
There's something under the chair. Is that right, Cherie?
It wasn't me.
Oh, okay.
I think me and Deborah maybe like the same chair.
Oh.
I might have been an old one. I've chosen a very boring chair this time, I must admit.
There's some nice armchairs there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a few like I like the little wooden chair with the heart carved into the back personally.
Okay,
Right.
so we've got an academic learning advisor, 2 learning advisors. There's a learning facilitator.
I know.
I think that this is one of the things that we will talk about as well, I think. Ruth, people have probably had enough, I think, with this.
Yes, yep. So I think our 10 minutes is probably close to being up. So we will return. So I'm going to share my screen again and go back to the PowerPoint, except I'll have to escape to do that. So share screen. And I want this one. Okay. Right. So, I think Deb will probably grade you as all having passed. 100% pass rate there. And we are ready to go into the breakout room Miro board. So you'll find all the resources that we've referred to, and there's an open space for suggestions on titles and levels. We're going to wrap this session and invite involvement to carry out our next steps. So this time I will open the second board. And share that. So I'll speak about the navigation once I've copied the link into the chat for you. Right. So just while you're watching the screen here, get rid of that. So this board is set up the same way, but starting here, starting on the left, you can see there that we've got some bulk sticky notes for you, and you're welcome to just pull them off and add to each of the areas. So as seen on the PowerPoint, we've got our values. Oops, sorry. Got values there. I'm going to drag using the scroll bar. And same criteria that we just viewed before. Evidence, with our evaluation. These are the resources. So there's a link to UKAT, a link to ALDinHE schemes. Just click on the shape there.
Ruth, do you want to share the Miro screen? We're still on your PowerPoint.
Am I not?
Yeah, we're still on the PowerPoint.
Oh, for goodness sake. Okay, that's what happened.
One at the moment.
That's
Well, in the wānanga.
Okay, 1 second.
In room 2.
I will do a new share. There we are. Sorry about that, everyone. Gosh, why doesn't Zoom allow? You know what I usually use? I use share portion of screen, and then you don't have to keep swapping. But I didn't do that today.
Oh, good. That's lovely.
So look, as I was saying, you can see the toolbars up the top. So I will show you where the chat is. So that's, you might have found it already. So this chat should be nicely empty. So you can record comments here. And I know that Ben found, he found the comment function over on the left-hand toolbar. So that's another way you can make comments on any of the values or anything else there that you want to comment on. And that's moved slightly. So as you go left to right, we're inviting you to add further sticky notes, comments, or put items in the chat. And then, as I was saying before, Deb reminded me I wasn't sharing my screen. These have the hyperlinks to the UKAT and ALDinHE schemes. This is the relevant section of the professional practice document, which we're going to discuss a little at the AGM this afternoon. And the pastoral care code, which we as learning advisors, where we receive a lot of student feedback, and there's some quite relevant parts there that might come into our values. This is the open space here. This where you can please put your suggestions for the what do you call it? How many levels, you know, what would we call ourselves? So just absolutely go mad in there and put in as many ideas as you like. Sticky notes.
To be honest, I'm not sure I want to be called a certified practitioner. Maybe we do, I don't know.
It sounds like someone who does, I don't want to say, but anyway, certain things that we have to go to the doctor for. And look, this is we are wrapping up the session using the final slide, and we'll talk about that later. And the board is sitting, the link is sitting in the conference Padlet, because we want other people to come in and have a look at our work, what we do today, and add further comments and so on. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and we've basically given ourselves 30 minutes. That's right, isn't it, team?
I think so.
Yeah.
And because we're a small group, I mean, the idea was to put people into breakout rooms to discuss, but I think it'd be quite nice if people talk over things as well, because we can see the stickies that you're adding, or the comments, and it would just be nice, as I say, because if this scheme is going to get underway, it's very much part of the collective, so we want to know that it's doing the things that members need to do.
And we're stopping our recording now, aren't we? And then once we do the voting process, then we'll restart it.
Rhoda, working with AALL in Australia to come up with a kind of certification or whatever you want to call it together, rather than doing one just for in New Zealand?
We haven't ruled it out. We haven't thought about it. I must admit, we have some connection with them through the ICANT executive committee meetings, but yeah, was that something that they talked about at their conference?
I don't know whether they have, but I'm just wondering, because even though ATLAANZ, we have, New Zealand is still quite small, and the ALDIN one in the UK, it worked for them because it's a bigger country. It's got a lot more institutions, and they've got the body of people to actually make it work. And I'm just wondering, for us, New Zealand, even if we include all the what's the new term now? Te Pukenga, and the universities, we still are looking at a very small number of institutions and people. But if we work together, and it's kind of an Australia-New Zealand thing, it might have more of, what's the word? Kudos and things that people might. I'm just wondering, and actually what we do with Australia might be more similar than compare with the UK and Canada. Just a thought. Might be quite, because this is going to be a major exercise. So if we're doing it, why not exploring working with the Australian colleagues and putting one together?
Thanks for raising that, Chardin. I personally would like to say our MATLAANZ and PATLAANZ colleagues aren't here, but I think we are very much, we have some really distinct cultural aspects here in Aotearoa, so it would be really important, I think, for others to see whether, we feel we're distinct enough from Australia. I personally do. But,
yeah, I agree. And I think actually it's good to see those values up there. I'm just thinking that one of the things that our institution has done recently with the Higher Education Academy, what's that called? Higher Education Fellowship, yeah. Academy Fellowship, is that we actually, I think Unitec used to have it before, that is that we actually apply for accreditation, and we were able to use values that are unique to our institution to for the application. So there's still certain core elements that are still pretty much the higher education elements, but the values are actually unique to us. So I'm just wondering if there is a way of setting up a scheme that allowed people to actually, like New Zealand could have its own values, values that could be unique to Australia or to New Zealand, but there's a certain set of core values that are more the professional values that maybe it's consistent. Just a thought.
Is there an Australian affiliate of learning, like the other affiliates? There is?
The Association of Academic Language and Learning.
Oh,
yes.
sorry. Oh, right. I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Actually, another question I have, and I love this idea, by the way. I'm just raising a lot of questions, not that I have any answers for it. Is that how do we actually encourage, even if we go into the trouble of setting this up, whatever format it comes up, how do we encourage people to take it up, to do it? I'm just thinking that, as a manager within our structure here, there is no promotion. So what's the carrot that we could put out there and say, hey, if you do this, this might actually, not just in your role description, but maybe that you might get a promotion, you might get a pay rise out of it. Otherwise, a lot of the times people might say, nah, I can't be bothered. It's just another extra bit of work that's not going to get me very far. So is there anything that, I don't know, and like I say, I'm just raising questions I don't have an answer for, because, and excuse me, I know that within my team, I'm trying to encourage people to go and take the Higher Education Academy one, but some people are quite resistant to it. And I, not that I want to force them, but there's no incentive for them to do it.
I certainly think it's a consideration. I mean, if I look at the UKAT and the ALDIN one, they are quite comprehensive, and it's not that I would want anything we did to be watered down or insignificant, but I certainly think we can't be asking people to write 5,000 word reflective portfolios. I mean, I think if we were going to do it, we possibly would want to make it more immediate and discreet and manageable, because you're right, Shadan, otherwise we're going to have reviewers reviewing things and re-reviewing things, and that puts an onus on our association as well. So I certainly agree with you. I think we would, something of value would be great, so we can say this is what we are, because that's the conversation we haven't had, is how we got to this role. I mean, none of us grew up as trained learning advisors, but it is just the way I think of, in some ways, quantifying and qualifying the profession. But you're right, it certainly can't be so big and onerous that, and someone else raised that as well. Could it sit alongside some of these things as an add-on or a more practically oriented extra, rather than, you're right, replicating or getting people to do more of the same? What do you others think? Who else have we got?
Yeah, so I think in a way that speaks to a bigger problem, like Jardin mentioned, the fact that there isn't any sort of progression through the profession, you know, in terms of, I don't know what you call it, you know, career progression, which is, you know, I mean, and that's what people are kind of going to think, like, why would I do this? Because I'm not going to get promoted. I'm going to go here. And people are kind of, I don't think it's so much people can't be bothered, because that makes it seem like people are not very engaged. And I don't think that's really the thing. I think it's just people don't have any more headspace to do anything else, especially if you don't get paid or promoted for it, which is a university-wide problem. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can I add something here? There is no incentive for publishing as well. I mean, for contributing to the ATLAANZ journal as well. But there have been very solid contributions over the years. So I think it is still worthwhile, and you know, it will still help us to define our practice and make it clear to the administrators what we do, and you know, how are we, what skills and attributes we have. I think it's still worthwhile, since
yeah, no, I think it's worthwhile too, but I can see why people are just, especially now after the last 3 years, are just kind of exhausted by things. But maybe that will change. Yeah.
That brings to mind, I think release time is the one thing that can help people if you're actually given time. And we through ATLAANZ found out that, for example, I think there's just Whiti there, Welltech, that have some actual dedicated time. We've got, in our organisation, we've got PD time, but if part of it was that, and it could be done through ATLAANZ, that people actually get a period of time that they can then spend on this, where they're free to work on it. Yeah.
I also wanted to add that I'm really passionate about what we're discussing today, because I think professional identity would make a huge impact for us. I mean, like, we sit in organizations where we've got management and people who have no idea about what we do, telling us how to do our jobs. And I see this as one way of building up that credibility, making a space for ourselves, and portraying ourselves as professionals in our field. So I think it's really important, and I would love to see that within the New Zealand context. I'm not against like mergers with Australia or anything like that, but I think it's really important that we do this within an Aotearoa context first and foremost, because what we all have to offer in these instances is really valuable, and I think with our combined voices we can really make this something to look at, and something that's practical, like you've all just reflected on, there's that space for kind of like when we are applying for these certain tiers, as you will, of say like recognition within this scheme, the things that we have to do to put forward those applications, but you know, using them in a more practical sense, still having a reflective component would be nice, because we all come from these different areas, how we got to these roles. I think that's really cool. And talking about what we do and how we do it, but not making it a 5,000 word essay with case studies, etc., like HEA, because I've done that. I'm a fellow. So, but and it's valuable, but it's still not on point with what I do. And if I had to go for senior fellowship, I'd have to really stretch their idea of mentorship, which I can see in the role that I perform, but I would have to paint a very clear picture so that they can see it too, because I'm not a traditional teacher, but I do teach. So yeah, I love what we're doing.
Keep putting stuff on the board, guys. I'm taking notes at the moment, but I'm not sure I'm getting it all.
In the board, so if you click on the link in the chat, the second one, you can join us on the Miro board.
I can't see the chat because I've only just arrived. The chat only appears from when you join. So can you put the link in again?
Oh, does it? Oh, okay, good point. Thank you. And we did a little bit of navigation practice, but you'll probably figure it out pretty quickly how to get around the board. Is there anyone else that doesn't have the chat, doesn't have the link? Okay.
I think I might need to sign up again because I've just lost. Does it matter if I do it again?
No, I don't think so.
Because I've just lost it somewhere in the.
You'll probably end up with another cute.
Yeah,
pseudonym.
I don't know what I did. The way I've lost the whole thing.
It's usually browser windows and what have you, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
I can't find that either. I just
yeah. I should have thought of this before, but in the values panel, I don't actually know some of the Pacifica values that people added last year in the hui. So if anyone here does, we could explain them to each other, or I was just going to do a search and see if I could find out the significance.
They're locked, aren't they? I think I did look. I think one is, I think the Baka, I can't pronounce it, is familiar.
Is what, sorry, Deb?
I think it's equivalent to familiar tongue.
Oh.
But look, absolutely, look them up.
Okay. And
maybe
Totua?
It is comment. Same, it is comment. Look them up.
Okay, all right, I'll do that now.
I've just had an idea that I wonder, completely off the top of my head, if there is a way of portioning the writing and have a kind of a portfolio approach to it, that people can complete sections of it at the time that suits them, and it doesn't have to be submitted as a whole. I wonder whether there's a way of doing that might be less onerous for some people when they're busy, and I don't know, just like that portfolio approach to in education, quite often you start with something and then at the end of it you get everything together, but we don't have to wait till the end to say, well, then now you submit it. But it can be say, well, I'm ready for the first part, that can be assessed now, and then I'm ready for the next part that can be assessed now. Just thinking about how busy people are, it might be easier for them to get a small amount of time to do one part of it. But then if it takes too long to complete the whole thing and have to submit it as one thing, sometimes again, you know what, we all understand that sometimes when you're doing a very long piece of research, it can take forever to finish. So just a thought that I can't add that comment anywhere because it doesn't kind of fit in with any of the things that you have on the board. So
there is, I think there's a far one on the side, which is, well, it is there's sort of a far one, which is what would you want to be called and how many levels. There's sort of a blank space. Why don't you just put it in?
I added a note there, so feel free to edit it. I've just got portfolio approach, but feel free to edit it, Jardan.
Okay.
So that's nice. So you could, I quite like that idea that you could sort of submit them. I mean, again, that would be an issue for a reviewer, wouldn't it? Would we look at the first bit and then sort of hang on
could you have reviewers to say that about, let's say, 3 times a year, that you will be reviewing something? So if people are ready to submit, I don't know, whichever lot, then you know that the deadline will be, let's say, April. And so that's the time that the reviewer know to expect to set aside some time to do some evaluation and things. Just, I don't know.
I like that. I like the sort of piecemeal thing rather than having to put together the whole, the whole thing all at once. Because
I like it too. It kind of reminds me of some of the courses that get experimented with sometimes, where the lecturers teach for the semester, but there are no due dates attached to anything. They just need to have it in by the end of the semester. So it kind of reminds me of that, and it works because then the students just enjoy the learning and they're not bogged down by all the stress that comes with deadlines. But I also, I agree, Deborah, Jardan, that having kind of like a portfolio where you have strategic sections that you fill out that don't require 5,000 word essays, yes, I'm all for it.
We might even need to consider letting some people submit, we're talking about being inclusive here, that submitting evidence that's not necessarily written based as well, I wonder.
True. I mean, like a lot of us do really effective online tutorials in all kinds of shapes and sizes. So that would be cool to be able to submit that sort of evidence.
I agree with that, and I have actually put in on the frame the evidence. Under evidence, I put a sticky note that we could probably agree on a variety of evidence that may be considered acceptable. As you said, it could be a recording of a session, or it could be a short survey that we pre and post survey that we do.
Just want to say before I forget that it's great that actually the 3 of you are taking up this job, this task. I think is really, despite all the questions I had earlier, I'm not actually disagreeing with the idea. I actually love the idea. I just kind of, I know it's going to be a lot of work ahead. So thank you very much for doing this.
I think one of the things we've learned from just the 3 of us working together is that when you get a number of people, it shares the work out. And we actually had a lot of fun doing it as well, would you believe? So when
Totally agree
next
with
year, next year I'm quite keen to continue what we're doing, with maybe more people working on different aspects of it. Marcus.
Hi, I've been cruising around different rooms.
Have you, Marcus? I'll just put the link to the Miro board in the chat again. Dawn said you can't see it when you've just joined, so we're just annotating on a Miro board, and
Okay.
you'll be able to get the hang of it really quickly, I know. So.
Never heard of Miro board. What's that?
It's an edgeless online whiteboard that's really fabulous for collaboration. So if you click on the chat, you'll have to create a username. Well, use your email as your username, and then just give yourself a password, and then you'll be away.
Oh, it's not the meeting chat then. Or is it just?
It is the meeting. It's the
meeting.
meeting chat, but just click on the link, and then
okay.
there's a. It's different from, like, there are whiteboards in Zoom and Teams, but this is really collaborative, and it's got lots of aspects to it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I'm on.
Yahoo!
Oh, do you have to sign up?
If you don't sign up, you'll be called visiting architect or something or other, like somebody who's joined today. Lee was called something like visiting builder the other day when he popped in.
This is fun. Are people having fun? I like this.
Absolutely. I'm still finding comments that I haven't yet read, although I've skimmed over the boxes several times and just found one that's jumped out. So it's really great.
Sorry, I came in late. I had to attend another hui, so I probably missed where you kind of outlined your vision. Are you thinking that there would be different levels of accreditation, like sort of, senior, junior?
It's certainly open for debate. It's one of the questions. Mona shared some schemes from one from ALDinHE in the UK and another one from UKAT, which is the Association of Tutors, and they do. And I know that Higher Education Academy does. So probably, but again, one of the things that we were thinking is that given our lives and our workloads, we don't want this to be a mega thing because it's not going to translate into more money or a badge. But yeah, either different levels or maybe different focuses. Either you could sort of do a practical one, or you could do a more leadershipy design one, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, watch the space with Te Tiriti, and because I think that aligning it with whatever happens in terms of career progression in that area is probably important. And HEA has 3 levels, and I can see some value in sort of having an early career learning advisor category where you're doing the job, but you may be you're treating water, you're getting some support. And then a kind of established learning advisor, and then a sort of more experienced learning advisor, and what you call those, I don't know. I know that in the polytech sector, staff that are on academic contracts, they have academic staff member, senior academic staff member, principal academic staff member. So sort of aligning it with that. I think that higher level category needs to have some sort of requirement that you're giving back to the profession in some way. So it might be that you present at ATLAANZ conferences or you serve on the exec or something, but I think that higher level needs to have some, like, it's not about qualifications and it's not about job roles. I think it's about service to the to growing the profession.
Nice.
And I wouldn't want whatever we do to be sort of so difficult that it excludes our newer learning advisors from becoming accredited in some way. So I would like that entry level one to not be too difficult, to be something that someone a year or two into their career could get accredited quite easily.
That's magic, Ruth. Can you add lots of sticky notes saying that, please?
Possibly. But the other thing that it really kind of, having moved from the university sector to the polytech sector, in the university sector, there's a lot more emphasis on qualifications and research. And that could be quite a barrier to people working from the polytech sector who don't necessarily have masters, PhDs or opportunities to participate in research projects the same way. So I wouldn't want that to be a reason for not being able to get accredited, but maybe it's a reason for not being able to get to that top level. So yeah, not everyone wants to engage in research.
Dawn, do you remember me asking the ATLAANZ exec about time allowances? And no one's got time allowances, like nobody in the group except Welltech and Whitidea. They had about 20 days or something. Yes, and it was really clear in the feedback, like when we summarising the 3 different hui last year, you could see that people's, do have really different roles, and, like you said, uni or ITP or whatever, wherever people are working, and that some you could see some people's practice is really values-based, and quite pastoral in nature, and then other people's practice is really quite cerebral and academic. So we would need to have ways for those things to be somehow acknowledged, because it's just as you switch, like you probably found this, you switch from working with a master's student to working with somebody from trades, or and Marcus, you've probably had this, and maybe other people in the group as well, and just totally different kind of ways of working to support that student. But if you didn't have that breadth in your organisation and you're working with, foundation learners, your work's still just as valuable as if someone's working with postgrads. So how do you sort of cover that? That's really what you might be saying.
I think that's probably where that evidence-based practice comes in, because the thing is that we don't necessarily always need people to conduct research, but it's more kind of saying, okay, you do things in this particular way, why? That it's backed up by not research in the sense of having to conduct kind of primary research, but kind of say, I'm doing this not just because I think it's a great idea, but I've done some readings and, informed by literature and things like that. So I like that. Hopefully I'm not very familiar with the polytech sector, and hopefully that could work for people in the sector.
Yeah, I think one of my main concerns is if this scheme is the kind of scheme that I could see being developed by universities, polytech people without high-level qualifications, or who, spend a lot of time working with level 1 to 4 as opposed to degree level programs, might not feel recognised and valued.
Yeah, and I think that's come up in previous sort of ATLAANZ hui in years past as well. When we've presented sort of some research things, and other people have kind of felt that they just don't have any time or any space or any kind of ability to kind of be involved in that kind of way, which is why I wrote that little message to you, Ruth, in the chat. Yeah, so just when you were speaking last. So yeah, I think that that's something to think about.
That sort of goes back to my point, that I say I would like it to be real and I guess contained, so not too simple, but as I say, there are other schemes that require lots and lots of words and lots of stuff, and I think this one should be potentially, you could get it because you have done like a great workshop series, or you've got lots of feedback from a group of students, or particularly at the lesser levels, that I think it should be real, rather than, you're right, I take your point, Dawn, but just saying I've got a qualification actually doesn't really say what it is that makes me a learning advisor. To be honest, my qualifications have got nothing to do with me being a learning advisor at all.
Yeah. So I wouldn't want that top level to be, oh, you have to have a PhD and be engaged in research to do that. I'd rather it was, you have to be giving back to ATLAANZ in some way to be that, which
Totally
could be
agree.
that you're providing, leadership through MATLAANZ, for example, or you're, you help to run the conference, or something that shows that you are not just you and your institution doing your job, but you're actually mentoring and supporting other people, or sharing your knowledge in some way.
Totally agree. Massey doesn't make space for us. Actually, we have a completely flat professional field. There's not even a senior learning advisor. We're just learning advisors. And we are under the professional pay scale, which means that we don't get made a space for research or publications. We have to do that in our own time, if that's, and so having an accreditation scheme that's what you've got to do to get to the top level, for me is unacceptable, because I'm freaking awesome at my job. And so just because I don't get to research and publish as much as I have, because I haven't published anything for more than 5 years now, and I hate that, I shouldn't be declined the rank that I know I deserve. Sorry, I know it sounds braggy for a New Zealander, but yeah, it's true.
I'm tempted to make that a post-it, Cherie. We're freaking awesome at our role.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is why I'm kind of like, when I put my manager hat on, I kind of think, well, actually, I love my team to do things like this, but what can I give back to them if they do spend time doing things like this? This university structure, it's for us at Victoria, we don't even have, within a professional, we don't even have scales to move up without. We do have senior and just learning advisor, but it's not like a given that you can collect enough evidence and whatever things and then be promoted into senior. There isn't such a thing. I have to actually get my colleagues to actually apply to become a senior, which is quite a barrier sometimes. But yeah, it's how do we build it into our institutional kind of, whether it is a job description. I could probably put in the job description that there might be a desirable qualification is that it get the ATLAANZ recognition, so then people might be more tempted to do that. But yeah, it's a real struggle here, how to recognize how great some of the staff, the work that they are doing. It's really hard.
I think at the postgraduate, it just popped into my head, but at the postgraduate level, if you kind of like did a Google search for the different learning advisors' names that get mentioned in theses acknowledgements, that would give you an indication. It really would.
Kirsten, do you want to come in here?
You mean my idea about us applying for an honorary doctorate?
Yes.
I thought as an entire unit, we should put in an application. You should all do this, so that at our universities we are all given an honorary doctorate, and we get called Dr. Te Tiriti Student Learning, or whatever your unit is called, because those of us that are working, like I know people are working in different places, but we've brought a lot of these degrees to fruition for people. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do before I retire. Good luck with this. Watch this space.
I love it. Good luck to you.
Yeah, well, you can do this too, Cherie.
So in a past life, I was a librarian, and librarians brought in a professional registration scheme, which required a portfolio, which was incredibly onerous. And so you could sort of get into it relatively easily through qualifications that met the criteria. But to maintain the registration, you had to do this portfolio. And what happened was a whole lot of people got into it, and then a whole lot of people just didn't do the portfolio because it was just way too much work. So I do like the idea, Deb, that you were talking about earlier about chunking it and getting recognition for a part of it, you know, that I can just go, oh, I've done this little part of it, I've done that little part of it, and then at a certain point it's like, yeah, you've done enough bits to be this. Yeah.
Can I ask something here? Will we be able to get an idea of how many learning advisors all over New Zealand do not have postgraduate qualification? Because at my institution, I have seen an increasing trend of employing advisors who have a postgrad or a PhD. So is it a way that we could get an idea that what in the Polytech area, for example, how many advisors do not have a postgraduate or a doctorate qualification?
Certainly here, there are staff that don't have a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, but I think if you look at that, that report, that ATLAANZ report that Julia and I did last year, there is, I mean, it's probably not up to date now. There is a proportion kind of, it shows the different, I think we split it up into different sectors, the university versus the Polytech sector versus the independent private providers. You can see from there roughly the percentage of people having higher qualification. Yeah.
I would say, just from my anecdotal experience, in a university, most people would have a postgrad diploma or a master's. Some would only have a bachelor's and a few would have a PhD. Whereas in the Polytech sector, most people would have a bachelor's, a few would have a master's, and there's a few that don't have a degree. They've just got a diploma of some sort. And, you know, they may have been working as learning advisors for many years and be very good. And if you're like career, why would you go to a master's degree now? You know, so we wouldn't want to exclude those skilled people.
No, we wouldn't want to exclude, but we would want to incentivize, and probably that would give us some negotiating power with the administrators. You know, at lower levels of recognition, we might encourage people who do not have postgrad qualifications, but as they go higher, it would be good to encourage them to do postgrad. That would add to the negotiating power with the administration.
Yeah, although to be fair, when people get PhDs, we often lose them because they'll move into academic roles where there's career progression, because there isn't in learning advising.
It's an interesting one, certainly looking at the bios of our life members who we are acknowledging later this afternoon, and I hope you've had a chance to look at them. And Ruth, we probably need to vote soon. Pretty much all of them came into the role and subsequently have done higher quality in education related things. So that's another avenue outside our scheme. But yeah, I would like to think that we're a community that even if we're not required to research or do higher ed,
we do it anyway.
We do it anyway. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I'm aware that most of us here might have come from the other, and Dawn, nowadays you got two hats, haven't you? But
many hats.
Many hats. We'd probably need to take this and consult our colleagues in the Polytech sector a little bit more, because what we have put in here as criteria and evidence might not be sufficient, might not cover people in the other sector. So I don't know. I certainly can't say for sure myself, because there's a lot of people who are doing they're learning advisors, but they are working with people like, building constructions, for example. How they provide their support might be quite different from what we know at the university. So I think it might be, I'm just recommending the three of you that if you could find a way of reaching out to them a little bit more and talking to them more.
What we're doing, I mean, to be fair, there are more people here at this conference from Te Pukenga than there are from the university. And also we are putting the link to the Miro board onto the conference Padlet, because we are conscious that there are 2 parallel sessions going on at the moment, and so there may be people who want to contribute. So the Padlet is going to be open throughout the conference, so hopefully we'll get some more comments. Although you're right, Ruth, they're all going to be from visiting artists and visiting architects. We won't know who they are. Never mind.
Yes.
Moving on, I think.
Yes, I just did want to share something. So Marcus and I have just achieved something called, senior academic staff member, and we're a subsidiary of Te Pukenga Shaudan. So you'll be pleased to know that about this. But so what has happened though over the years is that the criteria didn't really fit the learning advisor role, and so the organisations kind of paid attention to that, and we now have a number of staff who are called senior learning advisors, but that's not a learning advisor process. That's an sort of academic promotion process. Yeah. Congratulations, Marcus.
Thank you, Ruth, and congratulations to you too. But on that subject, it wasn't particularly a nice process to go through that accreditation system. And could I say this, that you could have all of the accreditations in the world and still not be a very good advisor. This is pretty radical thought, but why don't we have ourselves meted by our influence on students and how well they receive the support we give them? I don't know. It's a fairly sort of radical thought that we could actually be gauged by the people we serve.
Have you written that on the board, Marcus? Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the other one that sometimes we have is peer review. But you're right. I think definitely a student evaluation, learner voice is there already. But I think I would, if you want to endorse that.
Yeah, and I think we still need to keep on looking at how we do that student evaluation. So, we do things like surveys and focus groups and various other things. And someone once wrote a very good paper saying maybe we should just count the boxes of chocolates. And that was, the sort of idea of how do we, because we talk about this quite a lot, is how do we do the evaluation in a way that actually translates to something sort of meaningful. And I think it's a good idea, but I think we still need to keep on looking at that as a kind of fairly robust form of evaluation. So really happy to keep talking about that. And if you've got some more ideas about that, that would be great.
Yeah,
Sorry, I've got to go in a minute because I've got to teach a workshop and I just need a little bit of unscreen time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to share the screen because we've got about 10 minutes to do our voting process.
I'll hang around for that and then I have to go.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so we're actually going to run a vote on each of the areas. So where is my voting area?
Have we had any suggestions for names, people? I really don't want to be a certified practitioner. It's okay. Well, keep thinking.
Right. So what we're going to do is run a vote on each of the areas, including the stickies that you've added. You're going to have 5 votes. And I'm going to start now with criteria. So go to your board and you'll get some votes. So
I reckon you should give us 1 minute, Ruth. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time.
Okay. We've only got 4 to do.
Okay, cool. All right.
But yeah, okay. You've got 1 minute. Oh, what did we start on?
Start on criteria.
Oh my gosh, I was supposed to start on values. Never mind.
That's fine. That's okay. We can do it. We're just voting on criteria, aren't we?
Yes, but I'm run out of time, Deb.
Oh, that was mean.
Okay, can
I
you
don't even know how
see?
to vote. Sorry,
Did you create an identity?
I did.
And
Yes,
did
I
it say
did.
join voting and you clicked on it?
Yep, but it didn't do much.
The little pluses. Okay,
Oh.
we'll go back to values, and we'll try the voting process on our values. So I'll just close
Probably
that.
refresh the page, Marcus, if you refresh the page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, it's showing now. There's lots of people's names and things popping up and down on the right hand side.
Oh,
Yeah.
shall I turn the cursors off?
Yes.
There's a big banner which says, "Are you ready to vote?" But it doesn't
Yeah.
do anything when I click on it.
Because we haven't started yet. That's
Oh,
it.
no, go up to the board, Marcus.
Yep, I can see the board.
Can you
Hang
see
on a sec.
the frame that says values?
Well, it's off my screen actually. Most of it's off the screen. I don't know why. I can't move it on.
You can drag on the side or
Yeah, it won't move.
right mouse across.
Yeah, nothing.
It's all right. I'm trying to find how to turn the cursors off. I haven't.
I've turned them off for me.
I think individuals have to turn it off themselves. And actually, Ruth, if you point it at that little triangle so people can see if they don't like it.
No, I can only I can turn them all off, but I've just forgotten how to do it. Sorry.
It's the little arrow next to the sort of on the top row.
Right. Sorry, I'm going to get this vote underway or we'll run out of time. Okay, so you're getting 5 votes for values and
Well, we have 2 minutes.
do we want 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So join voting and then Marcus, go to the values. What's the name?
Can't see a values thing. All I can see is this board which says 2021 Hui contributions. I can see a board which says criteria, but I can only
go left, navigate
left. The voting?
How do you do that?
There should be a thing on your screen saying join voting.
It's a banner that says, "Are you ready to vote?" That's it. Voting session start. Oh yes, now I've got a different screen and it says join voting. Okay.
Yay.
So on values, I can just click on the plus thing.
Yes.
Yeah, for the ones you.
How many?
You've got 5 votes. Nobody.
Up, I mean.
It's respect. It's Tongan for respect.
Isn't it the same as voting for Manaakitanga then?
Yeah, just vote for the ones you want. Yeah.
And tautua is the Samoan word for service.
Okay.
The Northern Hui produced a lot of those values, as you'd appreciate. Okay, this time has everyone finished?
Aye.
Okay, end for all, end session. Okay. These votes are recorded. See your results. Okay, so that's quite a good distribution there. All right, so we probably fouled up on criteria, but let's try the evidence panel. So we'll just run a vote on that. How are we going for time? We've got a little bit of time. Okay, so we need a new session.
It's going well, Ruth. Thank you.
Oh gosh, well, it's certainly putting me to the test.
It is, yes.
Yes.
So
now
wait for a screen to pop up or what?
Yeah.
I think I'm just wondering if I can give you more votes. Like I'll give you 6 votes because this board is quite full. Okay, start. There we go. This is our evidence. What kind of evidence?
Evidence for what?
That you'd have to supply. Sorry, you go, Deb.
I was going to say, if you want to apply for the award, this is the evidence that you will present.
Okay.
To support your application.
For promotion you're talking about?
No, we're talking about a professional recognition scheme.
All right.
The ATLAANZ Learning Advisors.
Okay.
My vote's hidden on by the sticky on the chocolates.
Sorry.
No, I don't want that one. Oh, overlapping sticky, I can't vote.
Which one? I can move it for you. Oh, yep, there we go.
Some of them are there already. That's good. Okay, everyone finished?
Right.
Okay, you've got 9 seconds. Okay, so your results. Oh, that's not very, okay, we got a lot for those ones. Peer review, student evaluations, that's the point that was made before, portfolio. Okay, so we've got about 6 minutes. This one we're going to vote on is forms of evaluation, and this is our last voting session. Okay, so that one I'll probably give you 6 votes as well in 2 minutes. Just pull in the voting area. And there we go. Okay, sticky notes, start. Rightio.
Sorry, what's PLD stand for?
Professional learning and development.
Okay. And what's RPL? Recognition of learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're finished, I can end it. Is everyone finished?
Right.
Yes?
Right, all done.
Okay, end for all, end session, and No votes cast. Oh no, sorry. See your results. Okay.
And did that mean you could put more than one vote on one thing?
Yep, if you wanted to.
Oh,
Oh, I
realise
didn't.
that.
I didn't do that either. I forgot that you could do that.
Never
So
mind.
what we're going to do from here is, as Deb said, we'll put the board on. But look, I think I'm going to hand back to, so I can share the board. Mona.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for your participation. This was fantastic, and hopefully we will continue this conversation. And the next steps from here are, establishing a working party and then organizing a handbook, hopefully make a review panel. So please send us your ideas, and if you're interested in working on this further, please contact us. Our emails are here. Before the end of February, preferably. That would be great. Thank you very much. Over to you, Deb.
Thank you very much for your contributions, guys. You're right. We all agree of the value. We want to make it, if it's going to happen, real and practicable and feasible. Please keep thinking. If you've got other colleagues who weren't in this session, encourage them to take part as well. The link to it is on the conference Padlet, and certainly we will be sharing with our colleagues who were in either of the other workshops today, because this conference is a time to get voices from everybody, particularly those who are at the ATLAANZ and PATLAANZ meeting now. And yeah, let's keep talking. Thank you, everybody. Go well, stand up, stretch, turn around. We see you back in Ruma Tahi for the AGM.